The US generates 25 billion pounds of textiles each year. That's 82 pounds per person. Of this 82 pounds, 85% or 70 pounds is discarded as textile waste. This textile waste continues to grow as consumers demand more and more clothing items. Much of this textile waste can be attributed to something called fast fashion. Fast fashion is a term used to describe clothing companies that mass produce their items for cheaper. This sounds like a great thing, but in reality, it causes a lot of problems. Today, I'd like to address what those problems are. Second, I'd like to talk about what we can do to help slow down this fast fashion train. And third, I'd like to look at what the benefits are that come from implementing these solutions. The first topic I'd like to expand on is what fast fashion is. In older generations, clothing used to come out in seasons, usually 2 to 4 a year. However, that is significantly increased, and clothing companies are now producing their clothing items much faster, and clothing items are coming out in seasons usually 52 per year. So that means that there is more clothing, consumers are purchasing more, and that also unfortunately means there's much more waste. Fashion Revolution, an organization aimed to create sustainable fashion, has said a garment is worn on average just 4 times. So that means they aren't getting the wear that it was intended before they waste it. Problems with this include landfills. In the first place, it takes massive amounts of energy and water to produce this item of clothing. And like I said, it doesn't get the wear that it was intended for. But it also takes massive amounts of land to store this textile waste. The problem with this is that our landfills are already overcrowded. We do not have the necessary land to hold this growing amount of textile waste. And another problem with this is that much of the mass-produced items of clothing are made of synthetic materials. That means when we put them in the landfills, they stay there because they do not decompose. This is bad for our environment and really hurts our earth. Another problem with this fast fashion industry is that our clothing items oftentimes the clothing companies can't afford to produce them here in America. This means that they have to outsource to other countries like Bangladesh, India, and China, where they use sweatshops to manufacture their clothing for cheaper. They do this by making their workers work long hours, they underpay them, and they have to suffer through poor working conditions. This is very unethical, and we shouldn't be in support of this. It seems like a huge problem to tackle, but there are many things that we can do individually to help solve this problem. One of the best ways that we can help is to know what source our clothing comes from. Making sure that shirt you're wearing wasn't made in a sweatshop where the worker was underpaid. You can help slow down this fast fashion train just by knowing where your clothing comes from. Another way we can help is to donate or recycle our clothing. The rapper will.i.am said, "Waste isn't waste until we waste it." We have the option to decide whether our clothing goes into the trash bin or into a donation bin. It's as simple as that. Fashion Revolution said that 95% of our clothing can be recycled or upcycled. The life cycle of our secondhand clothing looks like this. When we donate our clothing to the thrift store, 10 to 20% of that is purchased by consumers as secondhand clothing. The other 80% is salvaged by recyclers and repurposed in one of 3 ways. They can send it to other countries as secondhand clothes for poorer people that don't have enough clothing, or they can recycle it as industrial rags to be used in factories, or they can recycle it into fibers to be used for carpet padding or home insulation. And just by doing this, we can reduce our waste up to 95%. And one of the biggest ways that we can help is to be those consumers that purchase secondhand clothing, is to help reduce it by 10 to 20%, which is what I want to talk about next. Purchasing secondhand clothing is not only good for the environment, but there are also many benefits that come from this. Speaking from experience, secondhand shopping can be very fun and rewarding. This dress that I'm wearing today was purchased just a month ago here in Cedar. It was really fun for me to look through the racks and to find something that I liked that I could be proud of. It was kind of like a treasure hunt. It also helps you develop your own style. Because the clothes at the thrift store are not mass-produced, it's not what everyone else is wearing. You're really drawn to what you like. And when you develop your own style, it really gives you a boost of confidence, which I think everyone could use a little bit of. It also helps support charitable organizations, so places like the DEI, where they help train their employees and get them on a better path. We can be in support of that when we purchase secondhand. And of course, as a plug for college students, it's cheaper, but not in the way that it was made by someone who was underpaid, but because it was pre-loved. You can still get quality items, but a little bit cheaper. Now that I've talked about the benefits of shopping secondhand, I want to talk about what we've gone over today. I first talked about what fast fashion is and the problems surrounding it, including the environmental issues and the ethical issues. I've also talked about the solutions to this problem, including making sure you know where your clothes come from and shopping secondhand or donating and recycling. I also talked about the other benefits that come from shopping secondhand. As you guys have become more aware of this problem and have understood what you can do to help slow down this fast fashion train, I'd offer a challenge to hop aboard the slow fashion train and create a more environmentally friendly and ethical world to live in. Thank you.